laughter comes tears. This video is about how after their laughter comes their tears. Comes weeping and gnashing of teeth. The idea of it in its true form, the essence of it for eternity. So first let's look at some wordplay, since these people like to play games, right? The first is slaughter. The word slaughter is the word laughter scrambled. For those of you who've been watching my videos for a while, maybe you work for the government, you know I've gone over this before. Now what about the word suicidal? You have sue, ice, lay, die. Sue, ice, lady. You know, it goes back to, the Statue of Liberty maybe. But what's more clear here is when we get the wordplay use, ice, lady. Right? Maria Mello, she was very white, very white. My ex-fiance was very white too. Okay. It's just kind of white people in general, right? When you're younger, Jessica Rabbit, maybe it seeps into your subconscious. I mean, they're using other races too, but it's the spirit of white thinking that they're using in a female. So you also get use, ice, lay, die. You get I use, ice, lad, right? Like a boy. So when you look at the word and say they're molesting all these children, they're starving all these kids, right? Okay, they use the kids to some degree. So E's E, right? E for evil, effeminate, and masculine, right? E, use, ice, lad, ice, deal, right? Use, ice, deal. I use, ice, lad. UCID, seal, right? So you see it, right? Because your ID, who you are. Now, Christ. I'm Christ. Use, ice, idol, right? They're false idol. Makes it so they can use, confuse, and abuse, right? Now, obviously, God doesn't allow them to. They use the ruse, right? The lie, and they confuse and abuse, right? The confusion, a con union, a con marriage, a con dating, con sex. Watch this part several times. Make sure you understand what I'm saying. Ask in the comments if you're confused. So they're using the false idol to get people to think a certain way. They're using the lady. They're using children in various ways. They're using the ice deal to deal with the devil. Right? The deal and the steal, the soul. The word soul is like the word SOL, and the word son is like the word son. Right? So you sold your soul and your offspring, which goes back to their core deity, Cronus, aka Saturn, aka El. So when it comes to the main kinds of false gods of the world, right? Not just whites, not just Jews, not just LGBT, everyone who cheats beyond my right to lead, wittingly and otherwise, they're putting pedo-sadism first, right? The Bible says folly is in the heart of a child. And folly is the opposite of wisdom. And wisdom, wise men follow God, they follow Christ, right? Wisdom calls out, Proverbs 8. So pedo-sadism, right? Because it's automatically sadistic to rebel against God and to be complicit with all this horrible stuff in the world, 9 million people starving to death, all these rapes and suicides and drug overdoses, on and on and on. Some guy riding by on a motorcycle, right? So there's appropriate repercussions because the person has a certain polite way about it. I won't say the old kind of thing, but okay. So there's pedo-sadism, Satanism, Saturn, Cronus, baby line, right? Babylon's magic spell, their psychology. Rothschild, it's child rots, right? Rothschild, child rots. The play on words for child rots. Any questions about that, put in the comments, right? Child and chill, right? Kids and the goat, right? The ram horns on Pan in some of his depictions. The goat, the ram. Okay. Nicole Kidman, right? Who are you kidding? Kid, man. Right? The kid's from a guy who thinks he's a man, but he's not. Again, it's pedo-sadism. Why? Because say you're a rich, fancy white girl in Santa Cruz or in Los Gatos, and you're going to a nice meal with a white guy, and he's benefiting from this system of pedo-sadism, of being too childish to do the right thing, so lots of people suffer, and deriving pleasure from that suffering. Deriving pleasure from the suffering of a child who's raped in church or something, or is sexually assaulted in various ways. Deriving pleasure in terms of, hey, turning a blind eye to that, and then saying, hey, don't mind if I do, instead of being a man and facing him. A man faces him and carries his cross. Anything else but facing them in the divine order is not being a man. There's a spectrum, right? Say you did it without me because you don't know I'm here. You're approaching being a man, and in a secular sense, that would be a man, but in a divine and true sense, without being in the divine order, you can't do that, but that's still better than not facing him. Horror means face. Horus, face us. Who? Not God and his Son, the enemies of God and his Son. So what's the language, right? The English language. Whose language is it? Where does it come from? The Latin root, right? All roads, all roots, if you will, lead to Rome. Whose roots? Who's saying that? Whites, white Jews, and LGBT people as groups. I'm not saying that every one of them approves of it or every one of them knows it, but I am saying that the governing class is trying to make it so it's their culture. And to not break the rules on YouTube, I'm not going to tell you whether or not in this video I think it's all of their cultures or not. So that's their main god, right? It's pedosodism. That's another way of saying Satanism. It's they're childish. If those of you who don't understand why they're all pedosodists, right? Everybody outside the divine order is in the spirit of that to some degree. It has to do with being childish, right? If, say, you dressed up like a little kid and your wife dressed up like a little kid, and then you let your little kids run around and be abused, but it's just mostly you being careless more than you insisting on them being abused. You'd still be in a pedo spirit because you're expressing that complicity with the culture and you're overkilling it. So you'd be in it more than most people who don't actually molest children, but you'd be in it nonetheless. This is important for you to understand. It might be a little bit complicated, but it's important for you to understand. Okay? Let's say you work in a church and you turn a blind eye and you're conveying and you're amplifying the spirit of that church, which you know damn well molest children, but you yourself don't. You're still in that spirit, aren't you? In a very clear-cut way. Say you're in the military or in the police or in the government and you're conveying that same spirit. Whether or not you know that guy's turning a blind eye, that guy's raping the kids, it's pedosodism, and so it is how it all comes together. It's way more than just Epstein's list. Way more than that. It's like the war on drugs, right? It's the tip of the iceberg. Point number 2, another god of theirs is the god of homosexuality. Another is the god of witchcraft, psychology, chemistry, propaganda, theater arts, what have you. Dionysus, for example. Eros can be seen as a god of homosexuality as he blurs the line, but it's really maybe more hermaphroditus, right, where we get the word hermaphrodite. It's that blurring the line. The god of money, the god of beta control. Beta's acting bad. You better do it. He knows better. He knows. The god of sex in general, the god of technology, AI, robots, vehicles, like these things are not greater than virtue. And you all need to understand that. So as they realize their mistake, the tune sort of changes. It's no longer this harmless, young person sounding tune. It becomes more harsh. After laughter comes tears. For those of you who doubt it, think about the patterns in nature. For those of you who read the Bible, think about Proverbs 14:8. The wisdom of the prudent is to give thought to their ways, but the folly of fools is deception. And for those of you who don't think I should say it that way, think about, I believe it's Psalm 18, where it says, to the faithful, you show yourself faithful, right? You show yourself pure. You show yourself good. To the devious, you show yourself shrewd. Now, I'm not a Satanist. I don't channel the devil. I'm trying to help people understand, because they understand the occult. They fear the devil and not God. They're going to end up being tortured by something far more fearsome than the devil, and they're going to be tortured by that idea forever. And that is my soul at God's right hand. The leopard is far more fierce than the pit bull. The sun is far more fierce than a little block of ice, and God is infinitely more fierce and fearsome than the devil. You backed the wrong team, as they say.